This is Plant-Based Briefing, Vegan for 10 Years, 10 Reasons Why It's Still the Best Decision I Ever Made. Part 1 by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com. I'm Marian Erickson. This is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And this article would be longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I'm reading part 1 today and then tune back in tomorrow for the second half. And I'm so pleased to have permission from Brigitte Gemme at Vegan Family Kitchen to share her content. She offers many resources on her website, many of them free, including workshops and printables, recipes, a podcast, an amazing blog. She even has a cooking club every couple of weeks that's free, virtual. People from all over the world literally come together to batch cook. I subscribe to her whole food plant-based meal plans. There's a one-time price you can buy in. You don't have to subscribe monthly. One-time price for just over $100. It's an amazing deal. She also has courses and meal plans for just one person. She's dedicated to helping people learn stress-free, healthy, whole food plant-based cooking. And that reminds me, I think her book that was released last year should be required reading for every person who ever makes food, especially college kids, who are just learning how to cook. But anybody, it's called Flow in the Kitchen, Practices for Healthy, Stress-Free Vegan Cooking. It's about the mindset of cooking, how to learn to create meals without having to follow recipes all the time. Fantastic resource. So check out her website, veganfamilykitchen.com, and now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Vegan for 10 years, 10 reasons why it's still the best decision I ever made. Part 1 by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com. I've been vegan for 10 years. For 2 years prior to that, I was eating a predominantly plant-based diet, but still ate meat on occasion when visiting family and friends. Then one night, I decided to commit to being vegan. I'm still here, and not only surviving, but thriving. There are hundreds of reasons why I still think this was the best decision ever. In celebration of my first vegan decade, in this post I will share 10 of the most powerful reasons that stick with me today. I'll start with what was most obvious to me from the very beginning, then share some of the reasons that I discovered over time. If you avoid animal products like meat, dairy, and/or eggs, whether for health or for environmental reasons, but still consume some animal products because going fully vegan seems too difficult or too extreme, feel welcome to comment below. This post will help you decide whether you want to take a few more steps. Part 1, Environmental Reasons. I've been vegan for 10 years, but previously I was predominantly plant-based for about 2 years. Environmental reasons were the original reasons for me. Cooking plant-based meals started because I needed to be intellectually consistent. I cared about the environment, climate stability, and biodiversity. Avoiding fossil fuels, I walked and biked everywhere and used public transit whenever possible. Once I knew about the carbon footprint of meat and dairy, I had to also start cutting back on those. Do I still hold those views? You bet. Here are some of the still really good reasons why I'm glad I have drastically reduced my consumption of animal products. Reason 10, biodiversity. Overpopulation is a thing. Farm animal overpopulation. Sadly, humans have pulled off an awfully sad double feat. 1, since prehistoric times, we've crashed the population of wild animals 7-fold. In my own lifetime, wild animal populations have decreased by 68%. And 2, meanwhile, we've massively grown the population of livestock like cows, pigs, and chickens. The biomass of farm animals on land is now 14 times greater than that of wild mammals. Reason 9, farming animals for food is such an inefficient use of space. Farm animals require large swaths of land for grazing and to grow the industrial monocrops that feed them. The land is no longer available for wild animal habitat. Look at this chart above. 45% of the world's habitable landmass is used for agriculture. Of that, 80% is used for livestock, yet livestock supplies only 17% of the total calories consumed and 38% of the protein. How come? Animal agriculture is a form of bioprocessing. We feed legumes and grains to animals, and the animals metabolize that feed into meat and/or secretions. To get 1 pound of meat, we need to feed an animal 2 to 10 pounds of feed. How silly is that? Instead of eating chicken, let's make tofu from those soybeans. It's twice as efficient and doesn't carry salmonella. My personal decision to be vegan for 10 years now doesn't weigh very heavily in land use policy, but when millions of people decrease their meat consumption significantly, even without going fully vegan, it creates possibilities. Either way, I just prefer being part of the solution. Part 2, Health Reasons. Health reasons came later for me. At first, I thought vegans were exaggerating the benefits of eating plants. Now, having studied for 2 plant-based nutrition certificates, I see how science supports a drastic reduction in the consumption of animal products and a massive increase in the consumption of plant foods. Reason 8. Dairy is icky. I used to love a big chunk of good old Canadian orange cheddar, or a pungent piece of French osso arrati cheese, or a glass of cow's milk with a piece of chocolate cake. But once I started thinking about it more seriously, I realized that dairy is icky. After breastfeeding my own kids for almost 7 years in total, I can no longer understand how drinking the mammary secretions of another species past childhood makes sense. In addition, dairy cows are practically always pregnant, which means that their milk is naturally carrying a lot of progesterone. If milk was consumed in small quantities, maybe it would not be an issue. But my generation was raised to believe we needed 2 or more glasses of milk per day. Plus, the average American consumes over 60 pounds of cheese per year. Cheese is concentrated milk, which means there is a lot of fat content, further concentrating the hormones. Isn't that a bit gross? No wonder that connection with prostate cancer is becoming more clear. Considering those risks, since there is plenty of calcium in greens and other plant foods, there's no reason to continue consuming dairy. I regularly hear how taking even just a 2-week break from dairy brings clearer skin and happier joints. Just quit dairy for a month as a tiny experiment and see how it goes. Reason 7. Everyone needs to eat a lot more vegetables and beans anyway. There are so many sick people already, we all need to do our best to avoid finding ourselves in need of medical attention. We all know that eating more vegetables and beans contributes to good health, and it's now increasingly clear that those consuming a diet high in healthy plants have better health outcomes. When eating following Canada's Green Food Guide linked here, we get all the macronutrients we need, like protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats, and we get tons of phytonutrients that fight inflammation, cancer, and infections with every bite, while also keeping our blood vessels clean, nurturing a healthy gut microbiome, and improving our mental health. Phew, what's not to like? Too many animal foods and too few vegetables, beans, and fruits lead to chronic disease, filling up our hospitals and the pockets of pharmaceutical companies. Imagine all the cool stuff we could do with that money if we didn't have to pay for pricey health care. Eat your veggies, everyone. Reason 6. Dementia sucks. My father passed away with dementia. I am fully aware of the tragic cost that diseases like Alzheimer's lay onto those who have it and their caregivers. I do everything I can to reduce my own risk of developing the disease. We do know that diets high in saturated fats, which are abundant in meat, eggs, and full-fat dairy products, are associated with a greater risk of cognitive impairment. However, it's not so much that eating meat, dairy, and eggs causes dementia, but rather that every bite of animal product robs us of the opportunity to ingest phytonutrients, such as anthocyanins, chlorophyll, and others. Berries, greens, and beans are the foods that help clear heavy metals and pollutants from the brain, prevent amyloid plaque from forming, and keep our tiniest blood vessels clear of obstruction, preventing mini strokes. Greens are especially strong at preventing dementia. In the China longitudinal aging study from Shanghai, researchers discovered that those eating greens every day had a 78% lower risk of cognitive impairment compared to those eating greens just once per week. I want to be one of those people. You just listened to Vegan for 10 Years, 10 Reasons Why It's Still the Best Decision I Ever Made, Part 1 by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com, and I'm Marian Erickson, your host. Tune in tomorrow for the second half of this article, where you'll hear some more health reasons to be vegan, as well as ethical reasons. And please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.